So accelerator programs, they are designed to give you like a massive boost. A lot of them, like I said, offer funding, amazing mentorship, a direct line to investors. Expect to work and expect it to be intensive and expect to be pushed and expect to be out of your comfort zone. Hey there, welcome back. Today we are talking about joining a startup accelerator. Now, if I go back to the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, I found myself super confident and excited, and I had 7 years of corporate experience in product management under my belt, and I honestly thought I was like well prepared. And then stepping into entrepreneurship revealed that I had a significant gap in my financial knowledge, and even just like growth strategy and all these areas that I had not worked in before, right? It was an eye-opener, as I'm sure some of you can relate. And as a first-time entrepreneur, I felt honestly like totally lost. I was lacking practical skills that I needed to be able to confidently pitch investors. So what did I do? I went out and ended up spending $150,000 on an MBA to try to bridge that gap. But there are much better ways to do that, much more cost-effective ways to do that. And they don't involve nightmares about passing standardized tests. Oh God, those are seriously the worst. So anyway, accelerators are one of those ways. And we're going to talk about how they can provide like much needed mentorship and growth, support. And a lot of them also offer funding. So depending on which one it is. So it's a great option, way cheaper than getting an MBA. And honestly, the networking is going to be a lot better also because MBA, yeah, it's great, but it's not all entrepreneurs, as we know. So we're going to talk about the benefits of joining an accelerator, how to find the right one, some application tips to increase your chances, and also what the trade-offs are, and just kind of how to make the most of a program and community. I've been a mentor with multiple accelerators. A couple of my favorites were SDSI, San Diego Sports Innovators in San Diego, and the other one was the Founders Institute in LA. And I worked with some really great companies and helping them bridge that gap and getting ready for funding and growth. And it's so fun to see them transform from being, just kind of lost and overwhelmed to all of a sudden feeling confident and ready to go after the funding that they need or grow the company the way they need to. So, okay, let's dive into it. So joining an accelerator, I think this is one of the best things that you can do. And it's funny, I saw someone posting on LinkedIn the other day, like totally shitting on accelerators. And I was like, you know what, dude? Maybe it was like clickbaity kind of stuff, but I was like, that is your issue. Like anything else, accelerators are what you make them. And I think it's like anything, right? I don't know. If you just kind of point the finger at everything else, eventually you kind of need to look in the mirror at yourself because overall, while accelerators might not be perfect, they are doing a lot of good and a lot of people launch and grow their companies because of them. And I think there's a lot of things you can do to try to be more successful, to try to get into an accelerator. And also while you're in an accelerator, it's not just, a freebie, pass, go, whatever, collect your $200. Like you got to put the work in. So it's definitely requires effort, both in trying to get in and also once you're in. So if you're not willing to do that, not for you, but if you are willing to do that, I think accelerators are amazing. So anyway, that's that. Quick personal note, I am cramming in 3 podcasts today because we are getting ready to go to Belize on Sunday. I'm so excited. Spring break. We're just going to get out and get some tropical sun, which will be really, really nice. I am like such a tropical sucker. Like my happy place is just laying in warm tropical water, swimming. I just, fishing. I don't know. Maybe I just need to move to like a tropical island at some point. I think I will, but not quite ready to do that yet. So in the meantime, just squeezing in a good vacation. And then coming back, and I am going to, I know I've been mentioning this 2-week not boot camp, but workshop that I'm going to put together. And I've been working with some entrepreneurs one-on-one and kind of realizing like how I can be most helpful outside of just kind of doing the podcast. And so when I get back, I'm going to try to pull that together and figure out what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it to a smaller, limited group. And it's going to just be kind of a 2-week intensive little mini accelerator for entrepreneurs who feel like they need to bridge that gap. Maybe they're just not sure about a lot of terminology. They need some input on their financial projections. They need input on their pitch deck. They want to practice pitching. So it's going to be super valuable, and it's going to depend a little bit on what the entrepreneurs need who are in that group, but we're going to keep it small. We're going to keep it tight. I'm excited to do it. So when I get back from Belize, I'm going to kind of pull that together, and I'll share more of when I'm going to do that. And if you're interested, I'll probably just do like a little application or something so I can find out kind of where you're at in the process and put it together, which will be really fun. I'm excited to do that. So anyway, okay, let's talk about accelerators and how they can be a huge advantage if you go for it and get into one and take advantage of what they have to offer. Okay, so accelerator programs, they are designed to give you like a massive boost. A lot of them, like I said, offer funding, amazing mentorship, and most of them, if not all of them, a direct line to investors. So there is a huge advantage here. It is putting you in the network that you need to raise money, and it's giving you the support that you need to raise money. But here's the catch, is that they can be like really hard to get into. I've heard, I don't know if this is accurate, but I've heard this, that some, like Y Combinator has a lower acceptance rate than Harvard. So I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but I've heard that. So how do you stand out, and how do you get in, and what do you do if you don't get in? Not the end of the world. They're a huge boost, but I didn't join an accelerator. I did do my MBA program, but honestly and I did network actually a ton through that, but there are also other ways. If you don't get into an accelerator, or if you don't get into like the primo one, there are regional accelerators. I did go through an accelerator. This was actually kind of my like first entrepreneurial endeavor. Was right after college. I went through a program here in Santa Barbara called Women's Economic Ventures. And I wanted to start a handbag business. I was making handbags. I had a little art studio, and I went through their program. It was amazing. I had a mentor, and I learned how to write a business plan. And, this is 25 years ago, at least. And, I guess it's about 25 years ago. And anyway, so it was so great, though. That really gave me kind of a basic foundation for starting a business right out of college. I didn't really do much with it, but just going through it, it kind of gave me this base, knowledge that I needed. And looking back now, I realize that probably kind of helped me later in years, because it just kind of, it taught me, what the language is, what a business plan is, what a pitch deck is, what all these components of creating a business are. So even way, way back, I did that one. Amazing program here in Santa Barbara, by the way. Absolutely love it. They do so much good stuff. But so going way back, even very, very small community programs like that can be extremely helpful. So don't be discouraged. If you don't want to go into one of the big ones, totally fine. Or if you don't get in, there are plenty of others everywhere, pretty much. And I'm sure there's all kinds of online stuff too. I should look that up. So Anyway, okay, the benefits of joining an accelerator, again, funding. Some of them do give out funding anywhere maybe between 100,000 to 500,000 can be actually part of the program. If you're accepted, you get that seed funding as part of your program, and then you get mentorship as you're kind of starting to grow. And you are giving up a percentage of equity to get that. But that's money that you can use to kind of build out your product, hire some key talent, focus on growth, all that stuff. Great, great option. The other benefit is the mentorship. Like I said, you're going to have direct access to successful founders, investors, industry experts who can help you kind of avoid costly mistakes and fast track your growth. So at San Diego Sports Innovators, the reason I was mentoring there is because of my background with Burton Snowboards. They were specifically an incubator, accelerator, same thing, for action sports companies. So I was able to kind of lend a lot of my expertise in the action sports world towards companies who had never been in action sports and were trying to break into that market. So you're going to have access to a wide variety of people who are there to help you, and they just want to help. And that's what they're excited about. And it's a huge, huge benefit. The third benefit is networking and credibility. So especially if you get into a top accelerator, it is a massive stamp of approval when you're talking to investors down the road. They're going to take you more seriously. Customers will trust you more. It opens doors that you probably don't even know existed. So for example, apparently Airbnb, they were getting rejected by investors over and over. And then they got into Y Combinator, and it obviously did pretty well for them, right? So it can really, really help, especially some of the top ones. But again, those can be super hard to get into. But even the more regional incubators and accelerators, you're going to get, massive networking opportunities. And even just when you're talking to investors that are not connected with that group, it's still going to give you credibility. And it's just going to show you're taking initiative and you're making an effort to do everything you can to make your company successful. That goes a long way too, right? You're not just kind of winging it. You're taking it seriously. You've joined a local incubator or local accelerator, and that's going to give them some confidence that you're surrounded by people who are taking a closer look at your company as well. Okay, so now let's talk about finding the right accelerator. So we've talked a little bit about, the Y Combinator, the Techstars. These are great for high growth tech startups. And if that is not where you fit, it's probably not even worth going through the process. I mean, you can try, it can't hurt, but it's super, super competitive. And they're looking for the most part, high growth. It's not all tech. There are consumer products as well, but you really got to have a lot of potential to get in there. The next one are more industry-specific accelerators and incubators. For example, the one that I talked about in San Diego Sports Innovators. And you can just Google and find industry-specific, startup incubators or accelerators. There's also regional ones. An example of that is Capital Factory in Texas. And this is kind of like a co-working incubator, accelerator. And you're just networking with all the who's who of in Texas in the startup space. And then you've got some corporate-backed accelerators like Google for startups and stuff like that. They might provide more specialized support and connections, within that company. But so what I would suggest doing is make a list of 3 to 5 accelerators that align with your goals before applying. So don't just find one and apply. Find a handful, look at all the requirements for all of them, and then apply to all of them at the same time. I think that's kind of the best way to do it. Okay, how to get accepted. Let's talk about this real quick. In this case, it is almost the same prep work as pitching investors. You need to build a strong application. And so again, you got to have a clear problem and solution. They need to be able to understand your business and your company and what you do, what your product is, how you make money. So you still need to be able to clearly tell that story, even just to apply to the incubator or accelerator. They're going to want to see market size, any traction that you have, team strength. Again, like I said, what your business model is and what your vision is and your potential impact. So like I say, when pitching to investors, you want to use clear, concise language, avoid a bunch of like industry jargon. The people who are reviewing your applications are not necessarily going to understand your industry. So you need to make it simple and easy to understand and clear. So the same amount of effort and work you're going to put into an investor deck, you kind of want to put that same effort in just to applying to the accelerator, especially the more competitive ones. You've got to be dialed. So you want to have a killer pitch deck, cover all, the components in it, have it polished, don't have typos. You also, again, like investors, you want to show them that you're giving 100% and you're putting your best foot forward. Okay, the next thing to do to kind of improve your chances to get in, it is really smart to network with alumni and mentors from those incubators and startups. So a lot of them will give priority to people who are referred by alumni or by their mentors. And so you can find people on LinkedIn. You can, a lot of them will have like info sessions or events, stuff like that. You can attend those, try to get warm introductions. And, again, before you apply to one, try to reach out to a few different alumni. If you can build some connections with some of those people in there before you apply, when that application comes on their desk, they might go, oh yeah, I know this person. Their idea is great. Let them in. Who knows, right? Probably not that simple, but you get the idea. Really smart move to try to network with some of the alumni of that incubator accelerator that you're applying to. And it might give you a little bit of an edge in getting in. Okay, last thing is the interview process. They're all going to have interviews. You've got to be prepared to answer basic questions. What's your startup's origin story? What traction do you have? How do you plan to scale? Why this accelerator? Why are you applying to this one? And, they might try to ask you like, what's your unfair advantage? Stuff like that. So again, just like you're practicing for pitching to investors, you also want to practice, just even the interview process with an accelerator incubator. You want to practice answering their questions. It'll totally pay off. So don't go into it unprepared because they're going to ask you questions similar to it as an investor would. So you're really preparing like you are for an investor pitch. Okay, let's talk about understanding the terms and the equity trade-offs. So there are equity programs and non-equity programs. Again, programs like Y Combinator, they might be taking, I think it's like 7% for 500,000 or something like that. Techstars, I think it's like 120,000 for 6%, something like that in that range. And, but they're bringing a lot more than cash. So I wouldn't look at it like a typical equity investment because you're getting so much support and credibility, and the network in itself that you're going to be able to build through that is totally worth it. So, I think it's worth it if you could get into one of those to give up that equity. 100%, I think it's worth it. If for some reason you don't get in or you don't want to give up equity, there are plenty who do not take equity. So there's plenty that are just like, if if they believe in you, they'll let you in. It doesn't even cost you anything. So I think, there's some people see it as a trade-off, giving up equity, but I think it's totally worth it, especially if you're getting funding and all of that, support and networking. Another one is kind of follow-on investment rights. Some of them will retain rights to invest in future rounds. So like right of first refusal. That means that when you go to raise that next round, they get to say first if they want to be the investor. If they pass, then you can go to other investors, but they have the right to be the first investor in that next round. So just like with investors, read all the fine print in the agreement. Don't just, sign, understand what you're getting into, know what the terms mean for you down the road, and just make sure you fully understand all of that and anything that's written in there. The last thing is, the expectations when you're in these programs. And I've seen people do this. I've seen both sides. I've seen entrepreneurs who come in and they are just dedicated. They are willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, they go above and beyond, and it's just amazing. It's so inspiring. It's so much fun. And then I've seen the entrepreneurs who come in with this kind of like, oh, I thought you were going to do it for me, attitude. And so you need to go into these expecting to do the work. It's not someone's going to do it all for you. And it can be really intensive. But that's why you're there, to get pushed. And if you're already in this entrepreneurship path anyway, that's kind of the deal. So anyway, expect to work and expect it to be intensive and expect to be pushed and expect to be out of your comfort zone a bit. That's definitely part of it. Okay, so let's talk about maximizing your experience once you're in there. So once you're in there, make sure you are engaging with the mentors and your peers and getting to know them. A lot of times they're going to have networking events and it's fun. I used to go to all the SDSI events, were so much fun. They did such a great job throwing events. And you want to go to all the events. You want to network with the peers, the other entrepreneurs, and all the mentors there. And obviously, if, anytime they're inviting investors to these networking events, that's kind of their way of connecting you with investors. So get good at networking and engage and show up and make sure you go to all the things. The next one is you do want to focus on growth while you're in there. So they are expecting, fast results. You want to kind of have clear goals. You want to have clear, a clear idea of how you're going to execute. And that plan kind of needs to be on a faster timeline than if you're just kind of completely doing this on your own, on the side. So this isn't something you want to go into if you're just building your company on the side necessarily. You need to really be all in and ready to go and ready to focus on growth if you're joining one of these. Another way to really maximize it is pitching relentlessly. So as I said, back to the networking events, you want to be ready to pitch your business and maximize talking to all these people to attract investors while you're in there. And especially while you're there and you have that credibility, be networking even outside of the accelerator to leverage that credibility. And hey, I'm in such and such right now. I'm, getting ready to launch my company that's about blah, blah, blah. So pitch constantly while you're there, leverage the credibility of being in it at that time. And you're basically just giving your company a huge push, and you got to be ready to do that. So the last way to maximize, stay connected after the program. When you're done, really make an effort to stay in touch with the people you connected with in there. You never know where those connections will land down the road. It totally pays off to maintain your network. So I would definitely recommend staying engaged, updating mentors, updating, any of the investors that you met along the way. Feel free to stay engaged after the program ends. So all that to say, an accelerator can absolutely change the whole trajectory of your startup if you choose the right one, if you come prepared, and if you take advantage of everything that it has to offer and go into it with an optimistic, mindset. I don't know, if you hear anything and you go into it with a negative mindset, or you feel like they're taking more than they should, or any of that, let all that go at the door. Go into it in a really positive place. Be ready to hustle, be ready to work, and it can completely change the path for your startup. They are incredible programs. There's so many of them. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I hope that was helpful. And best of luck. We'll see you soon. And I'll see you guys when I'm back from Belize. Ciao.